Finally got a mentor. Just like I got to finish this. First leg, one of three.
Oh,
Take me
good.
3 years.
Okay, I see us live there, Corey.
All
Um,
right.
yeah, well, little rusty here. Welcome to the Quantum Leap podcast with David and Corey, and we are back for our season.
Yep, I lost you. You're not coming through on the microphone. Something clicked off. This is a great way to do a one-to-one, by the way, on Zoom is to have your microphone stop working. No, I can't hear you. Yeah, your microphone is showing nothing, but you're not muted. Is your microphone muted? Does it have its own mute?
Yeah,
There you go. I can hear you.
testing.
You're all
Okay,
good.
okay. It's a little finicky. I got to just not even touch the wire at all or go near
Oh
it.
dear. Okay.
Um, they need those. I need to go with the other mic. So, um, but yeah, Corey, if you don't mind just introducing yourself and uh, if you want to do a quick check in with something you're working on too, feel free to share.
Yeah, I am Cory Knott. I am the partners coach. So I work with business partners who want to have a great relationship so they can take advantage of all the power of partnership, which is far beyond what solo entrepreneurs can do on their own. And actually, what I'm working on right now is taking the three assessments that I really like and realizing that people kind of get assessment fatigue and combining them into one test. So it's probably going to be Mind Sonar and then just adding a few questions to get a little better sense of what their disc style probably is and then also their money story. So once we have that, we can launch that as a kind of a tool for a lot of people, kind of like, what is coaching? Is it going to make me wrong? Things like that. But an assessment tool just says, this is who you are. So it's good. It's kind of like looking in a mirror. And if that makes you uncomfortable, that's a whole nother problem. But um, this will be a great tool. And then maybe working on some of my own knowledge as well as maybe using some AI to create a report that is very specific to partnership because that just
Okay.
simply does not exist.
Yeah, great to hear. And I know, what as you get further along on those, we could bring somebody on or do some more work on the podcast on explaining some of those test tools and also your findings on partnerships. So,
Mhm.
yeah, today I thought we'd talk about as we were discussing one-to-ones because this has been a big kind of focus of B&I, our business networking organization, and it's really the foundation of successful networking I see in a lot of ways. And I know you have a lot of experience and knowledge on it, and I realize how my thoughts have evolved on it too. So, not that there's like a set program here, but I feel like if you just kind of fly by the seat of your pants, so to speak, you leave a lot out that could really help benefit you and your business. So it really can kind of pay to use some of these tools or at least give them a try. But first, I wanted to back up a little bit and just say, well, what do you see a one-to-one as, or a successful one-to-one, and how do you generally like to conduct a one-to-one session with another potential business colleague?
Yeah, well, a one-to-one is a networking meeting intended to either introduce each other or to further a relationship. It's not about selling to each other. Sometimes people sneak in that way, but it really is about furthering the relationship, potentially for referrals or other ways of collaborating, right? It doesn't always have to be referrals. There's many ways we can collaborate as well. But ultimately, it's establishing the relationship or moving it forward.
Okay, great. And um, I generally, kind of set up a one-to-one if you see the potential for some collaboration with that person, or you have to see something generally while you do one-to-one. I know a lot of them, we do them just for being polite, but we almost don't have enough time to do a one-to-one with everyone, so to speak. I had a guy ask me for a one-to-one who lives down in Santa Cruz, and I just don't do a lot of business down there. So I just sometimes I just so have to say, um, if there's something specific I can help you with, or maybe do a quick call. But it may not always be make sense to do a one-to-one for both parties, and that's completely fine. But um, how do you see the significance of one-to-ones and networking? For example, I see if a chapter or group is struggling, often their one-to-ones are very low, which is almost like you're not kind of showing up, so to speak. It's almost one of the most important things for networking are the one-to-ones, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I mean, Ivan Misner says that of all the tools that BNI gives people, one-to-one is the most powerful. And you think, okay, well, that's not really a tool that BNI gives you. Anybody can do that. But the fact is, BNI creates some accountability around it. It puts people in a room to set up one-to-ones. It really becomes part of the process. And with all the other things you can learn in BNI and do, you are not going to be successful unless you do the one-to-ones. It's that simple, and I can attest to that because I've been really bad about the one-to-ones the last few years, and staying on top of them, largely because I kind of widen my network, probably more than is good for me, but just trying to find some of the right people and get my message clear. What I can say is going deeper is what the one-to-one value in BNI and any solid networking group with a commitment is. That's where the value truly lies. Um, and what you said something about, groups that are failing. One of the things also we look for in groups is, are there one-to-ones, even if they're doing a lot of them, and some do, are they actually being productive in them? And you're going to talk a little more about that. But one of the things we often see is they'll. I had one group that was very small and struggling, and they would meet at Starbucks after the meeting, and five, six, seven, eight people, and they would all record it as a one-to-one. So their numbers were way up there, but they weren't having the business conversations. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, well put. And I was going to share a little anecdote about it's almost like going to the gym, like if you just kind of
Right.
show up and go through the motions versus
Right.
if you do an actual workout. And I think we're going to give the makings for a real kind of workout on, so to speak, on the one-to-ones in terms of something that's very efficient. I think there's just really a more efficient way to do them versus if you kind of just show up and talk about sports or like, the Niner game or other stuff that just not productive overall. So, and you may not even get to some of the most important questions, and you may not ever get to those with that person if you don't utilize some of that time. So,
Yeah.
I was kind of leading into the next one about some common mistakes or oversights that you see people making in their one-to-ones, or, um, you already mentioned a couple there about, showing up for lunch or breakfast, but not really doing a one-to-one, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's common issues with one-to-ones, but the oversights are really not talking about business. They get easy to get into social discussions. I think not being really clear about what it is that you do and what makes a good referral is a big mistake that people make. If it's really early in the relationship, it's sort of just getting to know each other, assuming that people are ready to give referrals, especially if you're in a um, high trust type of business. So, mine is fairly high trust. It's a long sales cycle. So, and it can be a little confusing for people. If you're a financial planner, it's even harder because you can't just go in and say, I provide all these products. Do you want to buy? Or who do you know who wants it? It's like, I don't know who wants you because I don't know you yet. So I think this is a common oversight with that. I actually was just putting together a presentation for our chapter on what I call the flywheel. And if you know what a flywheel is it's a it's a wheel that as you turn it starts to store energy, but it takes a lot more work to turn it because you're not just releasing the energy as you turn it. So as it stores energy, then it can start to turn on its own, right? So it's that flywheel effect. And it's a lot of work at the beginning, but as it stores the energy, then it can actually start to run on its own, or it's very easy for you. And you see this in, exercise bikes. You see it in, the old steam trains. All kinds of things use flywheels. Ships use flywheels, and that's how they don't have to use a lot of fuel. And but it takes a lot at the start, and so that's, I think, the thing we oversee don't see in the one-to-ones is that it is a relationship building, and the first ones are usually much more work, and if we don't capitalize on that work by doing more of them, then we don't get the benefit.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned that visibility and credibility and
Right.
profitability, or you started to, and I think that's a key thing with one-to-ones. I know Don Lyons actually gave a presentation to our chapter last week about this, and it's great to be reminded of it because just because you're visible and people kind of know what you do doesn't mean you're necessarily credible to them or somebody you want to refer. And I already wanted to just go off script about, how do you build that rapport? How do you establish credibility? As maybe somebody new in their business. I know how you don't establish it is not be clear on your business, but it's really kind of a number of things I can think of. And but how do you maybe get started with that, or what are some key things that you see as being credible in your business?
Yeah, well, I mean, sticking to the kind of the one-to-ones theme, I think it's show up for the one-to-ones, be on time. People don't really get how important it is to respect their time. There are some people who, see time a little more fluidly, and while that is okay for them, it doesn't mean it's okay for everyone else. And the challenge is how we show up in our one-to-ones, how we show up in any kind of meeting, is how people are going to expect you to show up for their referrals. So if you're not on time, if you're distracted, if you're not prepared, then it's just kind of assumed that that's how you're also going to be in a referral situation. And that, because that's all the information we have to go on, right? We can't just, over time we can let some of that go, but early on in a relationship, it's just expected that if you're just constantly late, then that's how you're going to be for the referrals. And sometimes I can refer people who are late, but I have to tell my, person is like, hey, they may show up 10, 15 minutes late or an hour late because that's just their habit. And if that's a problem for you, then we'll just find somebody else. So just think about that. What is the value of presenting yourself in a meeting as you would present yourself to a referral?
Yeah,
And
that's a great point.
the key
Also,
phrase is treat BNI as your best customer. So yeah.
yeah, or being on your phone, or maybe taking a call, or being distracted, because yeah, those are could be all things that do you really want to refer somebody who's gonna do that, to somebody so to speak. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are things that can happen. There's family and so on. And oftentimes we're on Zoom with, it is a little more familiar and casual in a one-to-one than say, a business meeting. So we can overlook some things, but at some point it's important, that
Yeah, and
they're all
for
unconscious too. Yeah.
no, well, yeah, and the better you know somebody, the more you can
Right.
get away with some of that. They
Right.
understand that you don't do it to them every time, so to speak. I did want to, with the rest of the time we had left, and I did plan on doing a part two of our one-to-one discussion because I have a lot of great materials that were recently created, or that are out there from BNI. So I was going to go over some of the highlights, but one worksheet that's been around for a while, I'm just holding it up, called this one-to-one worksheet. And I've actually given presentations on this, and you I think you actually suggested it when I gave my
Hmm.
first one, because it has some great things on here that I never even asked before I saw this. So I was going to do a little mock one-to-one with you. Just we can do maybe kind of rapid fire. I
Okay.
wasn't going to ask all of them, but there were a couple questions I was going to lead off, but we can go over what they are because they are very important questions. But they are almost a little bit personal questions too, and that
Yeah.
how much info you might give to somebody you just met might be, kind of the short version or the,
Mhm.
so to speak, curated version. But um, I love this opening question about which I actually open with now often. One version of it. Tell me about your goals with your company.
Okay, yeah. So my goals would be to work with 10 to 15 full partnerships this year. And then of course I'm launching this new package soon, which I would hope to sell maybe 100 of those. Because it would be, a much lower price and more accessible. So we might do it as more of a class type environment. Still kind of reshaping how that's going to look. Gail's starting to help out with that. But I definitely want to grow the partnership coaching side of things.
Yeah, and then this one leads right off of that. And I actually like this question because it's may not even be pertain to business, so to speak, but it could be other things.
Sure.
What are your accomplishments with your business, or maybe some things that you've accomplished recently in your life that you're proud of is a good way to get to know somebody.
That's a good question. I feel like, the last year or two has not been one of major accomplishments, but, more just sort of that flywheel, as I said, building things up. And, I've had some great successes with coaching clients you know, the, and I've had, I'm still working on completing some certifications, but I did some travel and I enjoyed that very much. So, that's always a good goal. I did a 2 week, I say, professional development tour in Greece on a yacht, um, which culminated a lot of years of working with a transformational coaching company, and so that was a big one for me.
Yeah, no, I can think of a few more for you. I actually do think somebody else can help you on this sometimes in that,
Yeah,
our chapter won that award last year, which I think is a big accomplishment
yeah.
for all of us, being one of the top chapters in Alameda County. Yeah, that motorcycle tour that you took through Europe, that was a
Oh, that's great
that's a
too. Yeah.
not a lot of people do that. And also, I mean, this is the fifth year of our podcast, which I
Oh,
think is
well, yeah,
pretty big accomplishment too for,
yeah.
um, you know, all the new material we've gotten. And then, um,
20 years of
so,
marriage.
sometimes making it through some of the tough times is just an accomplishment in itself to repivot our business. But you're right. It's like that flywheel that we don't mention it because we can feel it as an accomplishment, but it may not necessarily look as good on paper, so to speak.
Mm.
Um, I like this one about what are your strengths within your company? Like, or a strength, maybe I think a personal strength too.
Yeah, my strengths just generally lead more towards ideation, strategy, futuristic thinking. I'm a very forward thinker, and I'm also very diplomatic. So one of the things that I'm really good with people in the sense that I just come at them as who they are, and this led to interesting interactions in my life because the kind of people who sometimes gravitate towards me are the ones who find it hard sometimes to be around others. But I just and one of the things that I believe of in the partner coaching, more so than in business coaching, is that first people have to be who they are so that they feel comfortable, having building this business relationship. And sometimes transformation is required. We have to get out of our own way, of course, in certain ways, but it starts with the diplomacy, treating people as equals, treating them as who they are, and then create that awareness and understanding, and then decide if there needs to be redirection. There may not be. That might be enough, and that really just depends on the relationship and the people involved. And that's not something that most coaches do. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I do think that's almost one of the most important things about a coach that I think is one of your strongest suits is your presence and that openness, kind of the compassion and really understanding. So it's just how people show up. That's I love what Don Lyons said about um you don't have to like everything about that person, especially in a business relationship, how she always tries to find at least something that she can love about that person. I thought I always do that where you look for people's strengths or, certain things that are really make them exemplary. So,
Yeah.
um, oh yeah,
Yeah,
we have,
and her natural style isn't to do that. So, um, and that's that's a skill that she has built over time. Yeah.
yeah, I have a couple more key ones here, which I really love, especially to make sure you fit these in because they're good ones to as Don said, if you bring somebody in that's going to help them, they're never going to forget that. Um, which is about who are your contact sphere professions not in the chapter yet, and these are people who would help you the most with referrals, but we don't have them in our group. Just for people new to the this kind of
Yeah, yeah.
room.
For me, it would be like a CPA or a business consultant would be great. And I'm even open to other business coaches as long as, they understand the differences between what we do. I don't think people should try to coach partnerships unless they have skill at that. And there's a few of us, but um, I think business coaches traditionally are more, individual focused and should be. Yeah. So, yeah, and, I'd love to have that kind of relationship with some coaches who want to be successful and we can collaborate.
Yeah. No, well put. Like a leadership coach, for example, we had one of those in our chapter, and I don't think she conflicted with you at all. Um,
No, focal
yeah,
point coaches are good too. I've talked to a number of them and they don't do this kind of thing. But they have really good tools for business owners and executives.
life coaches. Yeah, we've had
Life coaches.
number of life coaches on the podcast. Who we love having coaches on the podcast. They all have such a niche. But well, last question here, and then we're going to get to our 11 a.m. guest who's already in our waiting room. What phrases should I listen for on your behalf to find your referral? And this is, I think, almost one of the most, I love this question for people. If you don't ask it, it's a huge one. Yeah.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
So it was what phrases do I listen
Oh,
for,
right. Of course. Yeah.
or
Right.
kind of who makes a good referral for you too? Almost gets
Phrases are, for me, it's usually we're starting a business together. It's a couple. Another one is I want my kids to take over the business, but either they're not sure. Yeah, right. If they say no, then there's really not much I can do. But if they're like not sure about it, or it just seems like they won't give me a solid answer, that's a really good fit for me. Because a lot of times it's just I don't know how to communicate with my parents, and the parents I don't know how to communicate with my kids, and yet there's always so much love there, and it's one of the hardest things to estrange as a parent to child, and even in business. So we can bring them together in a really fundamental way.
yeah. I'll just give another example for me. It's like, hey, I'm doing a website or I want to do something different with my marketing. I find that's like a key in. Um, Also for you, I think if somebody, if they got into a partnership recently or they're thinking about it, you often hear that, or often they're stuck, people are thinking about it for a long time, but if they don't actually meet somebody like you, probably doesn't materialize probably even like half the time or whatever it may be.
Yeah, yeah, a good example could be somebody who's got a small business, they want to scale, but for whatever reason, they need somebody to come in with some money and expertise, right? So you can hire that, but you can also partner with that. So if you've got something good that somebody else wants to be a part of.
Okay, great. Well, as usual, we're out of time here and we're going to wrap up. We're going to do part two of the discussion. I'm going to actually put this one-to-one planner in the comments for this video. So I'm going to post that Dropbox link there. It may not be there right away, but later today. And we
Okay.
have some more great materials to go over in our next discussion I put on for February 10th. We'll see if we get to it then or if it gets moved. But I'll look forward to continuing our one to one discussion then. And we're going to bring on Courtney Miller here. So I'm going to end the live stream and we'll bring Courtney on here momentarily. Thank you.